Linda is someone who the white lion has been taken by 500 unscrupulous hunting firms as a sort of albino species to be cuddled and then taken out and shot by overseas people at big money so they can stuff it and put it on their wall. And yet the elders have actually come forward. No, we need sound. Sound is essential. And the elders have actually said, this is actually the royal lineage of the lions. And she's been ordained to actually take the place where the lions traditionally have been, and with she's got Leon DiCaprio, she's got all sorts of people behind her. She's been hugely successful in finding new domains and actually reinstating the order. And she believes if you put the lion back, the entire value chain, like the Lion King, will fall into place. And it did fall into place. It was absolutely amazing. You look at her. If you look at her land and you look at adjoining land, you actually get the entire establishment of the kingdom. That's it. That's the one.
Like the vital organs of the body, powerful biodiversity hotspots on Earth hold the source codes for the revitalization of our entire planet and the flourishing of life itself. Life began in Africa, and speciation is associated with the East African Rift Valley at the epicenter of Earth's land masses, also referred to by evolutionary scientists as the birth canal of the human species. The white lions were born on the Nilotic Meridian along the East African Rift tectonic plate and, significantly, in alignment with the most important architectural sacred sites on the African continent, Giza, Great Zimbabwe, Barberton. This means that humankind's greatest lion monument, the Great Sphinx and Pyramids of Giza in the north, align exactly with the birthplace of the white lions in the south. The white lions originate in this one location only on Earth, Timbavati, meaning place where the star lions came down in the old Shangaan language, and their heartland, Tsao, meaning star lion. But while the African wisdom keepers have long revered the white lions as holy animals and bringers of peace and prosperity, their critically important role in the ecosystem is less well understood. Their cultural role in restoring hope to humankind is equaled by their ecological role in restoring health to their ecosystem. Today we are faced with a prevailing sense of the devastation and desecration of Mother Earth. As immortalized in Disney's Lion King story, when the true king is removed from his kingdom, a wasteland ensues. But there is a way to come back into a right relationship with our planet. When the apex animal is restored in its natural kingdom, the flourishing of all species in the ecosystem is assured. The white lions may be living legends, mythic in their majesty and iconic in their radiant solar power, yet their ability to restore health and healing to their natural ecosystem is fundamental ecology at its best. Importantly, their place of origin is in the epicenter of South Africa's Kruger to Canyons biosphere, a UNESCO-declared biosphere region and one of the last viable lion ranges on the planet. The white lion's birthplace was declared an ancient sacred site by African kings hundreds of years before the Kruger National Park was proclaimed in 1926, and the more recent United Nations accreditation at the turn of this millennium. But tragically, the white lions have been forcibly removed from their endemic wilderness territories for a documented period of over 6 decades into zoos and circuses around the globe, and into death camps in South Africa's notorious cuddle-to-kill industry. To ensure the critical survival of the white lions while protecting the watershed in their area of origin, the Global White Lion Protection Trust has been purchasing large tracts of land since 2004, the heart of the white lion's ancestral territories. Significantly, the White Lion Heartlands spans the Ontario River, which serves the greater region, the only perennial waters in an area of some 100,000 hectares. Once a severely denuded habitat of radical biodiversity loss, the White Lion Heartlands has enjoyed dramatic regeneration under the paw print of the apex predator. This recent Google Earth map reports the contrast between Tsao, the White Lion Heartlands today, and the desertification of neighboring lands directly bordering, where legalized commercial trophy hunting of lions has been taking place for decades. Just as wolves restored waterways in Yellowstone Park, so ecologists now recognize the apex predator's role in restoring balance throughout the trophic levels of the food chain in an ecosystem. As inspirational symbols of true service-based leadership, the white lions in our protected area restore health to their ecosystem and hope to human systems. Behind me is land that was once seriously degraded in the heart of the White Lion Heartlands. The Global White Lion Protection Trust has been purchasing large tracts of land in the white lion's endemic homelands and returning the lions to the wild in a scientific reintroduction program. Because we know when the white lions flourish, all life flourishes. Today, all conservation issues are global issues. If Brazil loses its rainforests, Earth has lost her lungs. If South Africa loses its white lions, Earth has lost her heart. We can all feel it, the pulsing heart of the animal kingdom on Earth, the white lion's sacred natural site, revitalizing all the vital organs of our living planet.
Thank you. So that's the vision that a remarkable woman comes with. And 3 years ago, she had a bolt of lightning that obliterated her entire world. And it somehow symbol. She hasn't given up. She started again. So I've got involved through a wonderful colleague, a sculptor, and on the main road to one of the gates into Kruger, she wants to put a facility that can educate the lay public as to the narrative of the story, of the importance of the lion, and they come away also with a message about permaculture. So these are drawings I did just before I came away, and what I was saying to her, maybe we should look at the Versica Pisces, the fact that you've got two circles that intersect one another. I think this might be a bit distorted. If this intersection goes to the center of it, it's the symbol of Pi. It's the symbol of the eye of the sky. It's prevalent in all religions, your religions, the Christian religions. They put a tail on it and give it a fish. And then you have this looking up the Nile Meridian. So I did a series of drawings, obviously off a computer-generated model, so I could show her what the approach was, so we could at least enter into discussion. You take your shoes off and then you walk on the stardust, which is the river sand of the Timbavati River, and then the idea of going from the brightness into the darkness to get told the story. And you've got this eye to the sky, which is the feminine principle. And this is where we're at. You can see the nature of the date, and then you try and draw that darkness. And is it going to be told in film? And we're involving the storytellers, and we're involving the right curatorial team that can work to us to realizing this, and we're doing it all through local build. But there's the mythology. So that's one way of representing the eye of God and the idea of the Pisces, which is the liver of the fish, but it's sacred. And these are drawings that I do to explain that. And then when we get to this point, and then now not just looking only up the Nile Meridian, and the Central will come and help me build these vaults, the whole business of permaculture, of which you've got so many answers with your tribals that have been forgotten and sometimes not forgotten. And your ancient thing, that we've actually taken over a farm where the Broederbond, which was the arm of the nationalist government, terrible things happened on those farms. So we're using them as a healing process to make 200 acres the center of permaculture. Permaculture being an Australian's word for something he discovered, but you've already got that knowledge in your tribals. And this is a previous project that we did for a competition down in the gardens in Cape Town, where we were exploring the same idea of the Versica Pisces. We didn't win the competition. It's not important. What we did is we had this incredible dialogue with ourselves as to how could this be a place of contemplation, celebrating the 2,000 African troops that died in the Second World War and have been forgotten. The site, this is a Lutyens Memorial. There's Table Mountain. The winning scheme is a series of 2,000 spears that go into the earth, and we moved on. And then we go to Rwanda. And my colleague Tim Hall, who worked for Field and Clegg and Bradley when they were 15 in their firm, and they won the Sterling Prize, he was my partner in Rwanda because his wife was working for Difford. And a certain Englishman who was teaching cricket, and he was a member of the MCC, died of cancer, and his wife wanted to run a project where cricket got taken up by the British as a way of something. And we noticed that the scientific model of the bouncing ball was something that could become a pavilion, and we presented this as an earth pavilion to the then Minister of Infrastructure, who was a woman. And she explained to us, we Africans are tired of having mud being the symbol. We want to be like Dubai, man. We don't want this mud stuff, okay? So we looked at this, and then we did a little homework, and we found just before breakfast that this dude who was in power, Cameron, so we arranged to go and do a presentation. We were just cheeky enough, to arrange to go to 10 Downing Street and do a presentation. We designed our own table. We worked through the right things. There's Tim. There I am. Here's Ramage. And they got so many Tories there. They raised all the money in one night. It was a resounding success. And the Minister of Infrastructure thinks it's a really cool idea. So you can start bottom up, and sometimes you've got to go top. Okay? And I'll finish that story with a story of Uda and SAR Studios with a double A. And it's a huge success. I mean, they love it. And then right on the end of a precipice, I'd also just completed some monopitch interiors of this. And we're trying to do this in China to say you don't need all that Chinese interior junk. You can make vaults, and the architecture's it. And then, apart from Pancho Gedish and Doshi, there's also Grafton, Yvonne and Shelley. And this exhibit number 81, when they phone you up and they explain why you're one of the 71 out of 280, and you're the only one from Africa, and you'd presented in Dublin, and they talked about the visceral nature of your drawings becoming your buildings. And then we pushed off to China, and then we landed it at Hong Kong airport, and ping, 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 you don't have any WhatsApp or that in China. We suddenly got this message that the next day we had to submit a very clear A4 sheet in any medium possible to say what is the basic construct of your work. So my son said to me, Dad, this is not you realize project they're asking for. They grab you by the scruff of your neck and saying, what's the essence of your work? Dad, are you there? Wake up. So I said, let's phone the brother that's the spiritual one. And he said, Dad, it's easy. And I'll show you what we did. And then before they made you submit that, and I think we might get to the panels. I hope they're in this presentation. And then they gave you a site, and they said, we want you to give reverence to this 13th century site. It's 6 by 6 by 6. We want you to just use borrowed light, and we're going to critique your scheme that you submit. And and they said, we want you to use your drawings. We want you to take your moleskin drawing and make it 2.7 meters wide. And so, but I ended up using the anthropomorphic construct instead of the, because they chose the more organic construct in order to define space. And these were the 2 pages we sent to them. We said the one lot of architecture we do is axiality, symmetry, duality. It's informed by the human body, okay? And it's all of this. And then we have this other thing which is organic, which is informed by nature's order, not parametrics. It's got maths to it, okay, in a responsible way. They said, we want this one. And then this is a typical sheet that we had. And then my one son said to me, Dad, you've got this height. You can actually take all these schemes you've done that are organic and they can all dance with one another at 45 degrees. And when you take it to India, India will develop a whole other system of having plays. So these were the drawings we did. And this is a women's center that nearly got built. It houses 2,000 embroideries of women across South Africa's demography system, of telling the story of how they've overcome hardship, be it of political or domestic nature. And it started as a museum, but it became a place where women can end up making product like you've actually got here. And we had the government funding to build it at the halfway mark of the Comrades Marathon. And then we realized that there were evil forces. It was being hijacked for the wrong reasons, and we cancelled the order. But it's going to happen in another form. And this is a project for the first generation people, the Khoisan and the Griquas, and on a site just near Plettenberg Bay, where there's a quarry that's damaged the A-grade fynbos, which is it's got the highest, biodiversity of any plant in the world. That's a drawing of a seagull at 32 meters above sea level flying past. And we did this particular project. And what I did is I did these drawings. So, Avinash is not the only nutter, I'm the other nutter, where I got involved with all of this. And in this, I actually found the fossil of the fish which became the building. So if you immerse yourself in the Doshi sense, and you do these drawings, and then you find the prophets is over there, and he's actually said to the remaining people of the Griquas, don't stay together, you'll be annihilated. Spread yourself out as 16 groups throughout the country. And these were past schemes I'd worked on, some which had been realized, some hadn't. And then just now I'll take you to meet Mr. Jin in China, who he believes Buddha has sent me to him. It's a whole long story, which is really cool for me, and it's cool for him. And he was there too. And then we go to China. But Grafton entered into an intellectual discourse with you and their team that was absolutely profound. And they did it with every single person that they curated. They also opened the lymph glands that had been blocked by successive Venice Biennales, blocking visions, so they healed that space. Very special people. And also when the gender lobby tried to get mileage out of it, they said imagination is not a gender issue. And if you have a gender issue where you come from, just deal with it. Okay. So, Mr. Jin, you're in this beautiful setting. He makes padded jackets for the Russian and the upper-end Italian market for winter. But he basically wants to be an architect. So you've got an owner-builder whose ass you can't kick, but you can make him your pupil and then you can mark him. Okay? It's a nice, smart move. So there I miss Mr. Jin, and we want to do a video where I've taught him to draw, so we have this WhatsApp way of talking with one another. And he knows 2 bits of Afrikaans and 3 English. One is that beautiful is difficult. We do it, and then we taught him when we've done it, you pay. And then we've also taught him baie lekker, which is a couple of Afrikaans words. So we've been working with him for 7 years, and we've only now got through to him that if you have interior designers and you have operators and you're starting to do buildings which are essentially commercial, but you don't want them to be commercial, you've got to start discussing things, okay? And he's far too lateral thinking for a Chinese environment. And when I went to China, I suddenly found at Miami I was drawing like a Chinese person because the sensibility was there. And then I found he built the staircase, and I said, hey, what's going on? This guy's got sort of like a Zen touch, you know? There's something remarkable here. And so we hit it off in an amazing way. And we got the job because my 2-meter son's got red hair and he's Irish, and some Chinaman met him and said he thought his hair was going to bring him prosperity, and then through some project manager we ended up being in China. Okay? And this is the reverence that we have. And he's now off a cliff face wanting me to do these ponds that you fly from one because of this beauty. So one's been challenged. Okay? We started with Mr. Jin. These are spas where he wanted you to be massaged level with the water inside the leaf of a lotus flower. And we said, okay, Mr. Jin, you want to take it there, we'll have a go at it. So we did these very crude drawings, and he wanted a symphony orchestra, and he didn't have a site, so this hasn't happened, but it'll happen in another form. Okay, and then we could bury these buildings in a change in elevation, because you have a 39-year leasehold. You don't own land, but someone had defaulted, so we had this 9-meter height, and we buried these buildings in it, and then we disguised them like this. He thought he'd get away from the authorities. They ended up finding him, but they now love him. And so we did these 5-meter high stems, and then I did this drawing, and the nutter's gone and built this. You know, he pointed out to me, we've only got 2 waterfalls and you've got 3. I said, yes, Mr. Jin, this was done for the Venice Biennale. And then I was there, and it was 6.5 hours jet lag, and I arrived and I woke up in the morning and we had this sloping site, and I took 2 circles and slipped them down and added 2 bathrooms and did a yin-yang staircase. And the next morning he came and looked over my shoulder. He said, Midu. Okay, and he went and built the thing. He sort of tucked things on top. So we suddenly found we were involved in this. And then he started off with this Hello Dolly, Hello Kitty sort of nonsense. And I said, look, you're either going to do a theme park, you can go, Mr. Jin. I'll go home. I want you to understand you can do art, because when you walk behind here, you need to get to an opening where water comes out. That's the shop there. Let's see if we can't make art, and let's see if we can't do it as homage to the dragon. And we had all this river stone and stuff. And so we got involved, seriously involved. And then he saw the stone at my house. And so I trained all these guys. And you can't use the word Zen, because they've got a whole thing about the Japanese and how cruel they are, and they don't want the Japanese. So I said, okay, we'll find the equivalent of Zen in Chinese. And he's got it. Bless him. And I haven't won the interior scene, but we're getting there. And then I showed him how to make this, how the water actually wells up and then it goes over. And he's actually got it now, that we can make art. Yeah. And these are lotus flowers. And to cut a long story short, just before I came on this trip, I had to go to the airport at 7 in the morning. We had a Zoom call at 5. And he's got government support now. They want to support him with all of the rest of the venture. So we've got 110 bedrooms to do across 3 hotel sites. And they've all got to be, Peter, they've got to be wonderful. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Jin. Signed contract, Mr. Jin. Yeah. But, the dragon is there. And, we used to clean the dragon. They love the dragon. So we had to get into a whole other mindset. Then he saw my swimming pool and he said, I want swimming pool. So he's done the swimming pool. I taught him the Portuguese way of broken tile. It's actually been a wonderful relationship. And then I've been trying to get him to build, the little school next to the Sagrada Familia of Gaudi. We've got a beautiful building, one of the top 10 houses in the world in Cape Town, done by Harvey Fagan. I tried to get him to do that with bamboo, and this was going to be the Western restaurant, which was near the waterfall, but it's going to be done somewhere else. And we did some drawings, and then it was on another site, and then we did some renderings, and it's got a steel, and it's got 3.5 meters, and it's made up of a section that's not that different from that in bamboo, and then it's got a geoplastic. And then I'm trying to get him to do timbral vaulting and not use concrete, but I'm saying you can't use thin shell because you have 42 degrees with high humidity and minus 17 degrees in winter. It's got to be covered with soil. So the dialogue goes, but he comes, and I end up doing windows like this, and he thinks it's just fantastic. And then I show him that, stone can be used like the froth coming over a beer. So I pour a beer so it comes over. And this is the crazy house that we've ended up doing. And you can sit on the roof and look at the stars and, oh my God. And then he ends up doing things like this. And then we've ended up doing these buildings which have got a little bit of modernist Jewish Johannesburg in it, but they're fabulous. And little bits of Scarpa. And they're finger buildings. And it's got a staircase that's homage to Khan inside. And he's gone and built them. And we're now doing a whole another thing here. And there was a video here, but I don't think it works. And then we've just had the go-ahead for these, which are clusters. They're total 5, 5, 5, 15, 15, 15, that end up on a street that tells the story of his meeting with me, and you have coffee, and it then becomes the people in the village. But it's a different way of looking at things, and he wants my hand drawings because it makes the authorities go, wow. Okay? And then this is the latest project, which is, a bedroom that has a balcony, and you can actually sauna, and it's got a fireplace, and it's got this other thing that happens, and it sort of spins around, and we're talking about this. And we've done some quite crude renders and stuff. And it's been taken further, and we're talking about how can it actually change to a broken tile at a certain thing. And he actually gets it. And we're sort of at the stage now. And I said, we can do these things. And now he suddenly, we must go and look at Gaudi. And I said, okay, that's great if you're paying. But these are very crude. Maybe we should look at symbolic chimneys that have to do with your Buddhist faith. And then this is a lovely story. A billionaire, Joe Ritchie, who's just passed, brought up in Afghanistan, wrote a book telling the Americans how they would neither Russia nor Britain nor America would ever win a war. You just got to look into Afghans' eyes and know that. And he didn't win that one, but he won other stories, and he did fantastic philanthropic work. And he said to me, I'm on the fringes of Chicago. I usually have my offices in an industrial building because it sets up a dialectic conversation between things. Now I've got to move into a corporate building because suddenly, like the head of Walmart wants to invest with me, and he comes in his jeans and his sneakers, and he wants to sit in a chair where he can put his feet up and have his cowboy hat on. He's not the guy who's going to go to JP Morgan downstairs. I don't deal with those guys. And they deal with me because I have all these stories. I've worked with tribal women's local banks and helped them. He's just this exceptional human being. So we went and did one of the Prince Charles vaults as you walk out of the lift, like this. We went on his farm and we found, and he said, I hate the corporate world. I hate those ceilings with those lights that jump around. I hate those vertical blinds. I hate the pretentiousness of this highly ergonomic furniture, which is this designer whiner stuff that gets put in front of you. He said, come to my house in the Big Sur, which has got the last house done by the Green and Green brothers, which is like this dripping stonework. And I've got a 1.4 by 1.4 ottoman, which I can put my shoes on, my grandchildren can play on it, and you can have coffee. Now you come along with the non-Gucci table in glass, which has got this thing underneath. You can't do that. So we got the message. And your brief is, I wanted to be like the Dirty Dozen in a startup business in a garage. So we said, cool. And then he said, I wanted an architecture that you can eat, you can smell, and you can touch. And the Americans don't know how to do that. Now he flew in a Vanti jet. So we went on his farm, and we found a tree that had been felled by lightning, and we got someone in Missouri to cut it up, and the way you join it is an artwork. And then we found a way of growing Virginia creepers down so that the prairie sun could come across. And then we went and found a wood of a beetle kill wood that had burnt down, and we bought the whole thing, and then we gutted the ceiling, and then we did this flock of birds that flew in the space. And then we found, no, we had $150 an hour labor union. But between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning, the rules didn't apply. So we did it off-site, and we got a little boy who was a farmer, who was slightly autistic, and we gave him the chance to do it. And then he wanted all his heroes that had died, which were Johnny Cash and those guys, to be reflected in a non-Gucci pool, because he had given non-Gucci money at some stage when he was broke. So we had this wonderful relationship. And he wanted edicules of space, and he said, I don't want offices. I want like to be walking down a casita and you have coffee, because he says that's where decisions are made. They're not made in boardrooms. So we had this cool guy. Yeah, and we just did it. And there was a waterfall, and this is the farmer's son. So we had to do digital stuff and work all of this out, and we made these, and then we moved them in. So that's a beautiful story, and I learnt about, he used the word designer whiner, and then what we did is we showed him, alto chairs. He said, no, that looks as though you've been to IKEA. You didn't have enough money, or you were tired and ran out of discretion. Then we showed him an Arnie Jacobson chair. He said, no, that looks like a skinny Lizzie, and I've got a wife who's had 10 children. I don't dig skinny Lizzies. And then we actually said to him, okay, well, Arnie Jacobson did this curved chair that can pivot, which he has in the boardroom in Oxford. He said, get that, but go on eBay, and I want it to be used. So this is the relationship we had with this wonderful man. Then we go to the navel of Africa, which is Rwanda, where I was called in 2007 by His Excellency to lead the team, because he'd been let down by the Chinese to do a state house, which I can't show because it's like an embassy building. It hasn't been realized, but it was an interesting project. And then Field and Clegg and Bradley of London, who now 300 in their Bath office alone, and Peter Clegg, who I've actually got to write a Commonwealth recommendation for this weekend. He's retiring, he's my age, and there's a younger generation involved. They asked Tim and I and my son, 3 of us and 300 of them, to actually enter this international competition for 8 neighborhoods of 1,000 units each, starting with that one over there. And so we entered into this relationship, and against 5 other teams, which were formidable teams with Arab associates and things, we won. And this is part of the winning scheme, and we introduced them to the idea. It's on a sloping site, that the pedestrian ways were things that went obviously at the right pitch up the site, and that there was a whole. But this is what won it. This is my work. This is my input. I went and walked the streets of Kigali for 10 years. The first thing was interpreting Rwandan culture, the courtyard. That's what people have. They have defensible space, either internalized in that way or in that way. And then they have backyards. And it's called an imbuga, and there's the urubuga. And please start using the names of your culture when you describe thresholds and entrances. And I think I'm going to get Avinash to change the word threshold to a local name. Urubuga is public space, okay? Then you have, a defensible space, okay? Then you have entrance thresholds. You're going on a public way, and you cross into a courtyard, and you're building on a sloping site, and you threatened with removal because it's illegal. But when you go to the royal hut and you realize where the Zulus came from, there's a Sirembo, which is the way of changing, and there's a way of changing direction. And then there are names that are given in the language to the interstitial ways in which you lead up to the final change of thing. And then over here, there's the streetways and pathways. It rains 1.5 hours and then dribbles for the next half hour every day. So why don't you have these? And there's these beautiful ways, which are verandas and various ways of doing it, and incremental goes back. And the alleyways which exist, which are the ikikara, which exist in the squatter camps, which have all been bled out of all this crap that goes with super cities and has got no space. And then there's the street edges and the pathways and the public access ways. The fact that you can sit on a half level, you can sit at the first floor level, and you give public access. This is part of what we did, and this is actually what won the project, because it took the good manners of ordinary people, of how they've dealt with culture and dealt with the influence of colonials over a 30-year period, and come up with rural and other solutions so that the social interstitial spaces where you meet actually work on their terms. And then I'd been to the Kaninde brothers with Bijoy Ramchandran and looked at how they deal with a falling site with a courtyard, and that the staircase goes parallel. And we had the British wanting to, on the sloping site, make a flat building with a 3.5 meter retaining wall and a staircase that was at 19 degrees. And we were sort of saying, we don't have the tolerance to be diplomatic to convince you that you may be not right. But anyway, we're busy doing that. So India keeps informing one. And what keeps informing one is the Aranya project, the idea of the weave in the landscape. And these are what we finally did. We said the architecture, which is, it's off the grid and it's all that stuff, and whether it's going to be concrete to comply with the latest seismic or what, doesn't matter. If you can actually have the covered walkway, if you can use the first floor terrace, if that terrace can become a way, and when you enter the flats, if the staircases can become social space. And I started doing a series of drawings, and I said, why can't the balcony and the lounge replace the courtyard of the former thing? So we started looking at language. And we also started saying that, if you're going to look at women's space, 70% of the women are daughter-held households who are orphans from they're very special situations. So it's not a question of just doing the city functions that are part of community where you pay your taxes. We need to do and we've ended up doing the community buildings, which we've developed. We're in discussions at the moment. We've developed a prefabricated system, so all of the making and all of the materials can get through to the local community. And then someone in Bath does this rendering, and you've got no control over it. But it's interesting that a corporate that's very good at a lot of the aspects that we're not good at and have the power can engage with us, and through that marriage you can actually have an outcome. So it's a new way of working. And we've managed to land the market, and I love the market because it's on a fall, and the landings where the ramps are become the entrance ways to get into it. So we've managed to land that, and we're saying we just want that little piece of the cake. We don't want the rest, and then we're going to do British detail, design intent, and then say bye-bye. Okay. Okay. Now, just to conclude, Rajiv, last month, took me to visit 2 projects. I just want to share them with you in conclusion. These are his drawings. This is his museum. I critique that certain of these would have been better if they were actually more separated, but there's always a courtyard at the end, and as a geological thing, it's actually a very interesting move that he made. And here's the courtyard at the end, okay, with the shade structure that happens in the middle. But I'm going to move on to other things. This is those incredible ideas he's got for the sort of retaining and leaking wells that happen on the site one way or another, and we set off on this long journey to go across the space, and the entrance is halfway, and then we arrived at these. They're going to eventually be obscured, and each one of these represents those people from a village. So that village goes here, and you'll find all the names, and sometimes it's a zigzag, sometimes it's curvilinear, but they work incredibly well. And there's Rajiv, and it drains the water, and then it goes into the greater landscape, and the trees are growing. And a gradient of 1 and 20, And what was incredible, it brought tears to his eyes, we suddenly found that he didn't anticipate. Half the town goes to work out there every morning and every evening. And their yoga classes, there's people at sunset, there's people at dawn, he's created, they just touched his feet in homage because they couldn't believe that someone had given them something they never had. So suddenly it's an architecture for the good of a bigger audience. And congratulations to him for that. And the plants are growing. There's a whole story behind the number of plants and the number of people who've died. And there are various permutations on a theme. And then what we did is we made sure that we got there at sunset. Okay? And it was an easy walk. And then at the last minute, the contractor nearly had a heart attack because he had to actually create this 1 in 20 change in level zigzag to bring you up the hill to this. And we got there early. And it was the sunset. But the real revelation was the sunrise. Boy, did we welcome in the day. And then this is the early morning going back for the sunrise. And, should this have been used as a rough area to show the geology rather than the cladding in the thing, it's great to reflect on all of that, but it happened the other way around. And then what symbols do you actually make to the cosmic reference of that? And then we go to Nalanda, okay, and I visit the ruins for the first time. And the comparison of the ruins for the constructs for the new award-winning scheme. And I do a drawing. And I'm overawed, and then I see that he tried to be informed as a designer by this, and there were constructs that he basically had. And it's all in his book. The water gathering, the screens that happen, the stacked up classrooms, which I'm a bit worried about. But the scale was there. And the 3,000 students aren't there, there are only 300, so it needs to be occupied and the landscaping's not done. You find the landscaping's been given to a plumber who puts little flower boxes all around, whereas Aniket did the landscaping. But Modi's coming there in June, and we've got a new vice chancellor, and I made sure we sorted that one out. And there certainly has its poetic moments. It gets into trouble in certain other places, but it's actually remarkable that it's actually happened. And the way the scale breaks down at this end is really nice, which is where the faculty offices are. And there's the overall plan. It's going to be a much better scheme when it reaches its maximum potential. But what's happened is a certain individual shall remain nameless. She became vice chancellor and she took the library and put it as far away as she could, which is central to the scheme. And then went and put her name on everything. But I've now suggested that becomes the library for the Buddhists, and you do a new library. So there's new hope. Okay. And you sometimes need an outside critic to just sort of give. And there's a comparison with Circage. But there's the room, and there's a rhythm and there's a scale that's actually working. Okay? But it needs the library in place. And there are references to Greece. There are references to Greece in the IIMU later on. That's Rajiv, okay? And, I mean, he's part of Doshi's lineage, so, the idea of cluster, the idea of village, it's all there. It just needs the density. And the language is there, and the students love it. and the walkways, and somehow when the order's there and it's more restrained, there's a nice change from the one rhythm to the other rhythm. And then I was in Udaipur, and I paid a 2-hour visit here. It was a little bit of a run around, but again the Greek village comes into it, and just because of the topography and the bridge building, I think they're all the right decisions made here. It's also early days, but the fact that you're a member of staff and you can have a terrace, there's a nice materiality to it. The fact that library goes past and they sell craft and you meet underneath, to me it's actually exactly the right interpretation, and this is what happens underneath that big public space. And how you connect through, and the references are quite obvious. Okay, back to space making, one way or another. And then I just conclude, I met a remarkable young man, Ananya Sanghal, who's an architect. He trained in Bath, but he's of a very astute family who make water meters across India and the world. And he and his brother and sister have been entrusted to set up a foundation to do good for the world by the parents. And this is his latest building as a young architect in his 30s. Not bad. And the daughter reminded me so much. Where's Nikki? Where is she? Whose venue this is? Oh, she needs to meet her, because it's not often that you get trust fund kids that actually take the bull by the horns and take their parents' dynasty and move forward. So I've become a critic for him, and your spirits certainly get raised when you go inside. And he's created a science museum for his father, but it's becoming much more than that. It's becoming a bit like the big centre in Bangalore. But it's amazing what a young person with the right means can actually do. And he's very keen to get involved and make people's lives better than they were. So it's nice to know that there are young people like that. And he just hosted me, and he got me to take his office for 5 days to all of the sacred sites which we had the blessing of the royal family to get into, so that they could learn about architecture. So how privileged am I, and how privileged am I to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. It was an enlightening presentation. What momentous projects were there, they're yet so humbling. Your stories were like fabrics that were woven together so beautifully. And, it also felt so visceral in nature, so each of us could connect in our own ways. You spoke of darkness and sacredness, such philosophical connotation, very engaging as well. Also beautiful lines from space making. I'm sure all of us have lots to take away from this.